I'm John Meacham.
And I'm Allison Stewart. Here's what you need to know.
Millions of gallons of oil, billions of dollars in damage. The uncertain future of offshore drilling.
Pumping gas, out to lunch, a gun on the hip, inside the open carry movement.
And what former President Bill Clinton thinks you need to know.
We need to get back in the tomorrow business. If we do, we're going to be just fine.
All this and much more on the very first edition of Need to Know.
Need to Know was made possible by Bernard and Irene Schwartz, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Miriam and Ira D. Wallach Foundation, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Need to Know.
Thanks for joining us on our first ever broadcast, and we'd like to tell you a little bit about this new venture.
At Need to Know on television and online, we make it our job, maybe even our mission, to provide context and analysis to the stories that matter to all of us. Our goal is to turn up the light, not the heat, on the topics that inflame passions on all sides. National security, Afghanistan and Iraq, our environment, technology, and how we're raising and educating our kids.
We live in an odd moment. Never before has there been so much access to so much information. But if you're anything like us, inundation does not necessarily translate into insight. This program, which airs in the time slot so long and so nobly occupied by Bill Moyers, the legendary journalist and broadcaster, cannot replace him, but only succeed him, and work hard to live up to the high standards he's set for all of us.
So let's begin. The story on the Gulf has splintered off in many directions. The cleanup, the investigation, and of course the questions that just keep coming. On our Facebook page, Kathleen Doyle Snyder asked, why is it taking so long to cap the well? We spoke to the Coast Guard and they told us that working 5,000 feet underwater, the water pressure is so enormous that there's only so much that can be done before it destroys the equipment. There are many questions and they may take years to answer. It's a discussion that must include the coexistence of the industry, the environment, and the men and women who depend on it for their livelihood. Need to Know correspondent Daniel Seberg filed this report from Louisiana.
Sharks and rays swimming peacefully around an oil rig. It's a scene right out of a New Orleans aquarium, paid for by a consortium of the companies that use or benefit from real oil rigs like the ones not far offshore.
Why would they do that sort of thing? What's the hope here?
It creates a very happy illusion, an image of fish and oil rigs living in harmony together, which is part of the Louisiana myth of oil and gas development in the coastal zone.
Oliver Houck teaches environmental law at Tulane University. He's a longtime New Orleans resident. He's been keeping his eye on that Louisiana coastline and the industries that work it for decades.
About 120 years ago, oil was discovered in Louisiana. It changed everything. This state became, in effect, the PR department for the oil and gas industry, and it's remained that ever since. The governors would say it in their campaigns. Legislators would say it. The deal was simple. They paid the bills, and we'd leave them alone.
Energy has a big impact on the local economy. In 2009, it contributed over $1.1 billion to the Louisiana Treasury in taxes, royalties, and fees. That same year, BP spent $16 million lobbying Capitol Hill. And in the last election cycle, individuals and PACs affiliated with BP gave more campaign dollars to Louisiana Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu than to any other congressperson. Landrieu recently called for continued drilling in the Gulf, saying, when a plane falls out of the sky, you don't ground every airplane. Gulf drilling has long boosted the local economy, but the explosion brings up tough questions.
Is what happened a criminal act?
No, it would be criminal only if it were a willful and wanton sense of recklessness. No one could make a charge that BP intended this.
Was it grossly negligent?
That's a good question. If it was, then it could be criminally negligent, yes.
That could be very hard to prove. In countries like Brazil and Norway, spills like the one here might have been contained by remote-controlled shutoffs required by law. But those are not required in the United States. We asked BP for an interview, but the company declined by email, saying, "Our focus is on controlling the source of oil and mitigating impact of the spill offshore and onshore. We're not interested in talking about the past or speculating on the cause of this accident, which hasn't been investigated." Whatever the investigators find, BP is subject to a law that was enacted after the 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill. It's called the Oil Pollution Act, or OPA.
After OPA, the law became much clearer. The operator was fully responsible for all response costs, all cleanup costs, without question. And that's one of the reasons BP has been so quick in saying, oh, we'll pay. Of course they will. They have to.
The Oil Pollution Act also means BP must pay for the long-term costs of restoring the environment, plus compensate the people whose livelihoods are at stake. We found shrimper Daryl Moreau admiring the catch from his last day at sea.
That's some of the best you get to eat. The freshest. It might be over.
Who knows how long these boats could stay docked, but the captain and crew and other folks who make their living from the sea still need to find some way to make money. And right now, for many, there's only one way: go to work for BP. The company needs workers and boats to clean up the oil spill. But before they can head back to the Gulf, these captains and crew are inside this old dance hall and bingo parlor, sitting through a prolonged PowerPoint presentation, learning how to clean up BP's mess.
BP's priorities, as you know, is safety.
Though the job doesn't appeal to everyone.
I can make $500–600 a night by myself. I'm gonna go work for $10 an hour cleaning oil.
The answer is that right now that may be the only way to get back on the water. Meanwhile, even before the massive oil slick made landfall on the Gulf Coast, lawyers were already hitting the beaches.
You're my client, I'm your attorney.
They're signing up fishermen and small business owners fearful of losing their livelihoods. There are already more than 70 pending lawsuits against BP and its partners.
Because it was due to their negligence that they destroyed the fishing. Exactly. It's not your fault, it's their fault. Yeah. So they owe you to try and get you fixed.
And until the Gulf is clear, this could be the only marine life these kids will see up close for a while.